Three facts that every military enthusiast knows about the SAS. David Stirling recruited Paddy Mayne from a prison cell. Stirling broke into Middle East headquarters on crutches by climbing over the perimeter fence, and his 66 men destroyed more aircraft than the entire Desert Air Force shot down in aerial combat. None of these are true, not in the form you have heard them. The prison cell is a fabrication, published by Virginia Cowles in 1958, repeated in every account since, and contradicted by the diary of the officer who was actually there. The crutches over the fence is almost certainly Stirling's own embellishment. His brother, working for SOE in Cairo, likely ensured the memo reached the right desk through proper channels, and the 400 aircraft. The original claim was 250, more than any single RAF squadron, not the entire Desert Air Force. The comparison has been inflating for 7 decades, but here is what makes the real story more remarkable than the myth. A 25-year-old lieutenant, temporarily paralyzed from a stolen parachute jump, wrote a tactical concept on a notepad in pencil. He was given 66 men. His first operation lost more than half of them without destroying a single enemy aircraft. The army wanted him disbanded. He responded by finding thousands of surplus machine guns that the RAF had thrown away, bolting them to American jeeps, and inventing a form of warfare that did not previously exist. His second-in-command personally destroyed more aircraft than the highest-scoring Allied fighter ace. Not in the air, but on the ground, with homemade bombs the size of tennis balls. That story needs no embellishment. This is how it actually happened. In the summer of 1941, the British position in North Africa was not merely difficult, it was structurally broken. Rommel's Afrika Korps had pushed the 8th Army back to the Egyptian border. The Luftwaffe operated from a chain of airfields stretching across the Libyan coastline, Gazala, Tamimi, Agadarbiya, Sirte, Tamet, and each one sat hundreds of miles from the nearest British bomber base. Hitting them from the air meant long-range missions over open desert with minimal fighter escort. The Wellington and Blenheim crews who attempted it suffered accordingly. Commando raids offered an alternative, at least in theory. In practice, they were spectacularly inefficient. A standard commando operation against a single coastal target required a force of 200 to 600 men, 3/4 of whom were absorbed by perimeter security, diversionary attacks, and extraction logistics. The actual assault party might be 40 men. The Royal Navy had to commit destroyers or submarines for insertion and recovery, exposing capital ships to air attack for the sake of one airfield. Lay Force, the commando brigade deployed to the Middle East under Colonel Robert Laycock, carried out a series of raids in 1941 that ranged from marginally successful to disastrous. By June, Lay Force was being disbanded. Its surviving officers were scattered across rear area postings, their skills unwanted. One of those officers was lying in the Scottish Military Hospital in Cairo, unable to move his legs. Lieutenant David Stirling had arrived in North Africa with number 8 at Guards Commando, and a reputation for being in the assessment of more than one superior, profoundly idle, when not interested, and dangerously impulsive when he was. He was 25, 6 feet 5 inches tall, and had spent the month since Lay Force's arrival engaged in an unauthorized side project, stealing parachutes from the docks at Suez to test whether small teams could be dropped behind enemy lines. In June 1941, he conducted his own trial. He strapped a stolen parachute on, tied the ripcord to the leg of a chair inside a Bristol Bombay that was never designed for parachuting, and jumped. The canopy snagged the aircraft's tail fin. He struck the ground at roughly twice the recommended speed, his spine compressed. He lost the use of his legs and temporarily his sight. The first sign of recovery came when the novelist Evelyn Waugh visited the ward. War had been told that Stirling's leg had been amputated. Stirling wiggled his big toe. Over the following weeks, immobilized and with nothing to do but think, Stirling performed a calculation that would reshape raiding doctrine. A 600-man commando force could attack 2 targets in a night, but 60 men broken into teams of 4 or 5 could theoretically strike 20 targets simultaneously. Each team carried its own demolitions, navigated independently, and withdrew on foot to a prearranged rendezvous. If one team failed, the other 19 still hit their targets. The arithmetic was inescapable. Small teams multiplied force. Large formations wasted it. He wrote the concept on a notepad in pencil. What happened next depends on which historian you trust. The version told in virtually every standard account, Cowell's The Phantom Major, McIntyre's Rogue Heroes, Regimental Histories, runs as follows. Stirling, still on crutches, approached the perimeter of Middle East headquarters in Cairo. Stopped by sentries, he used his crutches to scale the fence. Inside, he was spotted by guards, ducked into the first available office, and found himself face to face with an officer whose lectures he had once slept through. He fled. The next door he tried belonged to Major General Neil Ritchie, Deputy Chief of Staff. Ritchie read the memo. Within days, it was on the desk of General Sir Claude Auchinleck, Commander-in-Chief, Middle East Command. Gavin Mortimer's 2022 biography, David Stirling, The Phony Major, offers a less cinematic alternative. Mortimer argues that Stirling's elder brother Bill, then working for the Special Operations Executive in Cairo, co-wrote the memorandum and arranged for it to reach senior officers through normal staff channels. The crutches over the fence episode in this reading is Stirling's retrospective self-mythology, a good story that became canon because nobody contradicted it. Mortimer's evidence is circumstantial but uncomfortable. Stirling was still on crutches. MEHQ was a heavily guarded compound, and Bill Stirling had precisely the connections needed to get a junior officer's memo to a general. The outcome is not in dispute. Auchinleck approved the formation. Stirling was promoted to captain and authorized to recruit 6 officers and 60 other ranks, approximately 66 men. The unit was designated L Detachment, Special Air Service Brigade, a name chosen not by Stirling, but by Brigadier Dudley Clark, the head of A-Force Deception Operations, who had already invented a fictional first SAS brigade, complete with a Phantom K detachment, to convince Axis intelligence that a large British airborne force existed in the Middle East. Stirling's real unit was slotted into Clark's deception architecture. The most famous Special Forces designation in history began as a bureaucratic convenience for a misinformation campaign. Training started in August 1941 at Kabrit, a bleak air base on the Great Bitter Lake. The man who built the training regime, the selection standards, and the unit's internal culture was not Stirling. It was Lieutenant John Steele Lewis, and the SAS that fought in the desert was in almost every operational sense his creation. Lewis was born in Calcutta in 1913, raised in Bowral, New South Wales, educated at Christ Church, Oxford, where he read PPE and served as president of the boat club. He had been developing parachute raiding concepts before Stirling's accident. It was Lewis who had procured the parachute equipment earmarked for India, and Lewis who organized the first parachute jumps in the Middle East, including the jump that crippled Stirling. When L Detachment was formed, Lewis became its training officer, its disciplinarian, and its conscience. His regime was built on a principle that no British Special Forces unit had yet articulated: selection by elimination. Lewis imposed minimum physical and mental standards and returned anyone who failed to their parent unit, a sharp departure from commando practice, where warm bodies were generally retained. He designed punishing desert marches at night with full equipment. He taught stellar navigation, demolitions, close combat, vehicle recognition. He designed the SAS parachute wings, modelled on the wings of a scarab beetle. Stirling built the unit's external relationships, the meetings, the permissions, the political cover. Lewes built everything that happened inside. Stirling acknowledged this openly. Jock could far more genuinely claim to be founder of the SAS than I. The first SAS operation took place on the night of the 16th to 17th of November 1941, timed to coincide with the opening of Operation Crusader, the Eighth Army's attempt to relieve Tobruk. The plan was straightforward, on paper. 5 Bristol-Bombay transports would carry L detachment paratroopers from Bagush Airfield to drop zones near Gazala and Tamimi, 2 Luftwaffe airfields on the Libyan coast. Teams would land at night, approach on foot, place Lewis bombs on parked aircraft, and withdraw to a rendezvous with the long-range desert group for extraction. The actual 8th Army Operation Instruction Number 16, preserved at the National Archives, specified 54 men. They jumped into one of the worst storms to hit the North African coast in 30 years. Winds that should have been 15 miles per hour were gusting above 30. Rain, rare enough in the Libyan desert to seem almost personal, soaked everything. Parachutists were scattered across miles of featureless terrain. Some men hit the ground and were dragged hundreds of yards before they could unclip their harnesses, skin torn off by rock and sand. One entire stick vanished. They were almost certainly blown out to sea. One Bombay was hit by anti-aircraft fire and crashed. Its 10 SAS passengers were captured. Equipment containers broke free on impact and could not be found in the darkness. The Lewis bombs that were recovered had been soaked through. The fuses would not light. Not a single enemy aircraft was destroyed. Not a single shot was fired at the enemy. The most ambitious special forces raid yet attempted in the Middle East achieved precisely nothing. 22 men reached the LRDG rendezvous point and were extracted by a patrol under Captain Jake Easton-Smith. 32 were dead, captured, or missing. More than half the unit, gone in a single night on a single operation before they had touched an enemy target. The pressure to disband L detachment was immediate and real. Senior officers already skeptical of Stirling's irregular methods now had a catastrophe to point to. 66 men authorized, 32 lost, 0 results. The arithmetic that had once been Stirling's greatest argument was now his greatest liability. Stirling assembled the survivors and told them L detachment was far from finished. Whether this was conviction or performance is impossible to know. What is documented is the decision that followed, and it saved the unit. Stirling abandoned parachute insertion entirely. The concept that had justified L detachment's creation, the idea that had filled his pencil-written memo, the method that had cost him his spine and half his men, he dropped it without sentiment. From this point forward, the SAS would travel by ground. The long-range desert group, formed in 1940 by Major Ralph Bagnold for deep desert reconnaissance, became the unit's transport. LRDG trucks, crewed by expert navigators using Bagnold sun compasses and theodolites, would carry SAS teams to within walking distance of their targets, wait at prearranged points, and extract them after the raid. The paratroopers would not parachute. They would drive. The partnership was tested within weeks. On December 14th, 3 SAS teams launched from Jalo Oasis, 300 miles south of the coast. Stirling took one team toward Sirte. Lieutenant Bill Fraser took another toward Agidabia. And Paddy Mayne, the man whose recruitment story is almost as mythologized as Stirling's fence climbing, took his team toward Tamet. The standard account, repeated in nearly every SAS history, holds that Stirling found Mayne in a military prison cell where he was being held for striking his commanding officer. The reality, documented in the diary of Lieutenant Colonel Geoffrey Keyes, is considerably less dramatic. On June 21, 1941, at Salamis in Cyprus, Mayne assaulted Major Charles Napier, reportedly because Napier had shot Mayne's dog while Mayne was away. Keyes investigated and dismissed Mayne from 11 Commando on 23 June. His diary records no arrest, no cell, no prison. Lieutenant Ian McGonigal recommended Mayne to Stirling. The prison cell myth originates with Cowell's 1958 book and was never corrected, partly because it made a better story and partly because Stirling himself never publicly disputed it. What is beyond dispute is what Mayne did at Tamet on the 14th of December, 1941. His team approached the airfield on foot after dark, placed Lewis bombs on aircraft along the dispersal lines, and withdrew. 24 aircraft were destroyed, 14 by explosives and 10 more by Mayne personally. When his supply of bombs ran out, he walked back onto the airfield and began ripping instrument panels from cockpits with his bare hands, wrenching out directional gyroscopes and artificial horizons to render the aircraft unflyable. The gyroscope he tore from one cockpit survives at the National Army Museum. Fraser's team destroyed further aircraft at Ajudabia. Only Stirling's raid on Sirte came up empty. The airfield had been evacuated. 13 days later, Mayne returned to Tamet and destroyed 27 more aircraft. Across both December raid series, the SAS destroyed an estimated 60 or more aircraft, the lower bound of a range that some sources stretch beyond 100, with 0 SAS casualties. The contrast with Operation Squatter was absolute. Same men, same enemy, different method, different result. Jock Lewes did not survive to see the full effect of what he had built. On December 30th, 1941, 9 days after his 28th birthday, his team was returning from a raid on Ophelia Airfield when a lone Messerschmitt Bf-110 found their LRDG convoy in the open desert. The aircraft strafed repeatedly. A 20mm cannon round severed a major artery in Lewis's thigh. He bled to death in approximately 4 minutes. His comrades buried him near the Italian marble arch monument at El Gaus. The grave was never recovered. In a letter to his mother written weeks earlier, Lewes had reflected on what he and Stirling had made. Together we have fashioned this unit. David has established it without, and I think I may say I have established it within. He added, "The unit cannot die as Layforce died. It is alive and will live gloriously, renewing itself by its creative power in the imagination of men." He never received the letter from his girlfriend, Mirren Barford, accepting his proposal of marriage. The SAS's lethality in the desert rested on 3 objects, each one a solution to a specific tactical problem. None of them was originally designed for the purpose it served. All 3 were improvised, repurposed, or invented by men who had no formal engineering background in the relevant field. Together, they turned a 4-man patrol into the destructive equivalent of a bomber sortie, at a fraction of the cost, with no aircraft at risk, and with a reliability that the Desert Air Force could not match in bad weather or at extreme range. The first was the Lewis bomb. The problem it solved was weight. A 4-man team walking 20 miles across desert to an airfield could carry a limited payload. Standard military demolitions were too heavy for the number of aircraft a team needed to destroy in a single night, and incendiary devices alone lacked the blast force to rupture aircraft structures. Lewis needed something that could do both, blast and burn, in a package light enough to carry a dozen or more per man. He had no formal training in chemistry or explosive design. He worked alone in a tent at Kabrit, experimenting with combinations of available materials. The result was a device weighing roughly 1 pound, about the size of a tennis ball. It combined 1 pound of Nobel 808 plastic explosive for blast effect, a 1/4 pound of thermite for incendiary effect, generating temperatures approaching 2,500 degrees Celsius, and a small quantity of diesel oil as a binding agent and fuel enhancer. A 2-ounce gun cotton booster and a pencil detonator or 30-second fuse completed the assembly. Placement was critical: near-wing fuel cells where the blast ruptured tanks and the thermite ignited aviation fuel. Italian engineers who later tested unexploded specimens concluded that in every case, the detonation caused both structural damage and fuel ignition, resulting in complete destruction of the target vehicle. 1 pound, 1 bomb, 1 aircraft. The arithmetic of raiding had changed. The second object was the Vickers K Gun. The problem it solved was firepower density. By the summer of 1942, the SAS had shifted from foot-borne raids with Lewis bombs to vehicle-mounted operations. But a jeep driving onto an airfield needed the ability to destroy aircraft at speed, in the dark, without stopping. The Bren gun, standard British light machine gun, fired at roughly 500 rounds per minute from a 30-round magazine. Against parked aircraft at 20 miles per hour, that rate of fire left gaps between bursts that allowed targets to pass untouched. The Vickers K, formerly the gun machine Vickers GO .303-inch, was a gas-operated aircraft observer's weapon, originally developed for RAF light bombers, like the Fairey Battle and Bristol Blenheim. When belt-fed Brownings replaced it as standard aircraft armament, the K-gun's wide-pan magazine interfered with wing structures. Thousands became surplus. They sat in RAF Middle East stores, unwanted. The SAS found them. The specifications explained why. Rate of fire, 950 to 1,200 rounds per minute, nearly double the Bren and faster than the German MG-34. Ammunition, .303 British, fed from 100-round flat-pan magazines, typically loaded with 96 or 97 rounds for reliability. The open-bolt firing mechanism and low-friction locking design made it highly resistant to sand-induced jamming, a critical advantage in the Western Desert. Weight, 29.5 pounds per gun, compact enough to mount in pairs on vehicle pintles. Twin Vickers K guns facing forward gave a combined rate of fire exceeding 2,000 rounds per minute. Loaded with a mixture of tracer, armor-piercing and incendiary ammunition, a 2-second burst could rupture a fuel tank and ignite its contents before the Jeep had passed. The third object was the Jeep itself. In June 1942, the SAS received approximately 12 new American Willys MB Jeeps, the vehicle that would become the unit's signature platform for the rest of the Desert War. The acquisition freed the SAS from dependence on the LRDG for insertion and created a new tactical possibility: the massed vehicle raid, in which a column of armed jeeps could drive directly onto an airfield at speed and strafe parked aircraft from ground level. The modifications were extensive and practical. Twin Vickers K guns were mounted forward, operated by the front passenger. Twin Vickers K guns faced rearward for rear defense. Some vehicles carried an additional single mount on the driver's side. Water condensers were fitted to radiator overflow pipes, recovering boiled water into 2-gallon cans, a modification worth more than its weight in ammunition in the deep desert. Bagnall Sun compasses replaced magnetic compasses, which were useless near vehicle metal. Sand channels were strapped to the bodywork for extraction from soft terrain. Racks carried up to 15 jerry cans of fuel and water. Camouflage netting covered everything when stationary. The bodywork was stripped to the minimum. A single jeep carried 4 men, roughly 2,000 rounds per minute of forward firepower, fuel for 300 miles, water for 4 days, demolitions for a dozen aircraft, and navigation equipment accurate to within a mile over featureless desert. 4 jeeps, 16 men, carried the aggregate destructive potential of a squadron sortie, except that a squadron sortie required an airfield, ground crew, fuel bowsers, meteorological reports, and fighter escort. 16 men in 4 jeeps required a compass bearing and the dark. The December raids had proved a concept. The July raids of 1942 turned it into a campaign. By the summer, Rommel had pushed the 8th Army back to the El Alamein line, the last defensible position before Cairo and the Suez Canal. British airfields were crowded and vulnerable. German and Italian airfields along the coast were packed with aircraft supporting the advance. Montgomery, preparing his counter-offensive, needed those aircraft thinned. The SAS, now equipped with its own jeeps and no longer dependent on LRDG transport schedules, could operate at a tempo that footborne raiding never permitted. On July 7th, Stirling led a column against the airfield at Bagouche. The raid began conventionally, teams on foot with Lewis bombs. But damp primers defeated several charges, and aircraft that should have burned sat intact on the dispersal lines. Mayne's response was not to withdraw. He drove his jeep back onto the airfield, twin Vickers K guns firing, and strafed the surviving aircraft from ground level at close range. It was the first time the SAS used vehicle-mounted guns as a primary weapon against parked aircraft, rather than a supplement to demolitions. The improvisation worked. Between 22 and 34 aircraft were destroyed. Mayne's own claim was 40, but the damp primers make the higher figure unlikely. 2 nights later, the SAS hit El Daba, 14 aircraft destroyed. 2 nights after that, Fuka, 22 more. The rhythm was relentless. Teams returned to base, rearmed, refueled, and went out again within 48 hours. German airfield defense units, accustomed to guarding against air attack, found themselves engaging ground targets that appeared without warning from the desert darkness, fired for 90 seconds, and vanished. The culmination came on the night of 26th to 27th July at Sidi Haneish, a German airfield designated Hagag el Kasaba, roughly 235 miles west of Cairo. 18 armed jeeps carrying between 60 and 68 men, British and Free French commandos, navigated across open desert without headlights under a full moon. Mike Sadler, who had transferred from the LRDG to become the SAS's principal navigator, guided the column by stars and compass bearing. As the formation approached the airfield perimeter, the runway lights switched on. Every man in the column froze. Discovery at this range meant annihilation. 18 jeeps against an entire airfield garrison. But the lights were not for them. A Luftwaffe bomber was coming in to land. The Germans had not detected the approaching column. Stirling fired a green flare. The jeeps accelerated into a V formation and drove directly onto the airfield between rows of parked aircraft. Junkers Ju-52 transports, Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters, Heinkel He 111 bombers, Junkers Ju-87 Stukas. 36 Vickers K guns opened fire simultaneously. The aggregate rate of fire across the formation exceeded 36,000 rounds per minute. Loaded with incendiary and tracer ammunition, the effect on thin-skinned parked aircraft was not a battle. It was industrial destruction. Fuel tanks ruptured and ignited. Ammunition stores inside aircraft cooked off. The column drove the length of the airfield, turned, and drove back through the burning wreckage. The most consistent estimate across sources is 37 to 40 aircraft, destroyed or damaged. 1 SAS man was killed during the raid itself. Lance Bombardier John Robson, 21 years old, shot while manning his machine gun. On the return journey through the desert, the following morning, Stukas found the column and attacked. Free French paratrooper André Zirnheld, the man who had written The Prayer of the Paratrooper, still carried by French special forces today, was fatally wounded. 15 of 18 jeeps returned to base. In the weeks that followed, Montgomery personally approved continued SAS operations behind German lines. The tempo reached 16 raids per week along the 400-mile coastal highway linking Rommel's forces to their supply base at Tripoli. The targets were no longer limited to airfields, fuel dumps, ammunition depots, vehicle parks, signal stations. Anything that could burn, the SAS burned. A German officer captured later that year told his interrogators that standing orders had been issued requiring all Luftwaffe airfields in the theater to maintain double perimeter guards at night. Thousands of men tied down in defensive positions because of a unit that, at peak strength, never exceeded 200. Rommel understood what he was dealing with. His intelligence staff estimated the SS at battalion strength or greater. The actual force was roughly the size of 2 infantry companies. On the 24th of January 1943, David Stirling was captured near Gabes in southern Tunisia. He had pushed too far forward with a 14-man patrol against the advice of Brigadier George Davey into territory where the tightening front lines left little room for evasion. The column was surprised. 3 men escaped, Mike Sadler, Johnny Cooper, and a free French soldier named Freddy Taxis. Stirling initially evaded but was betrayed by local Arabs who, according to Rommel's diary, sold him to the Germans for 11 pounds of tea. Rommel added an assessment that the British propaganda machine could not have improved upon. Thus the British lost the very able and adaptable commander of the desert group, which had caused us more damage than any other British unit of equal strength. Stirling was flown to Italy for interrogation. He made 4 escape attempts, 2 from transit camps, 2 from prisoner of war facilities, before being sent to Colditz Castle, where he remained until liberation in April 1945. The man who had talked his way past generals could not talk his way past castle walls. Paddy Mayne assumed command immediately. The man whom the establishment had regarded as ungovernable, the OTC report that called him unpromising material for a combat regiment, undisciplined, unruly, and generally unreliable, now ran the most effective raiding unit in the theatre. He would lead the special raiding squadron through Sicily, Italy, France, and into Germany, where by war's end the SAS brigade had killed or wounded 7,733 enemy soldiers and captured 23,000 against 330 casualties of its own. But the number that defines Mayne's war is the one that remains contested to this day. To understand the scale of what Mayne achieved in the desert, it helps to understand who he was before it. Robert Blair Mayne stood 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighed roughly 216 pounds. He had won 6 Ireland rugby caps as a lock forward and toured South Africa with the 1938 British Lions, playing all 3 tests. He held the Irish University's heavyweight boxing championship. He had earned a law degree from Queen's University Belfast. He carried a poetry anthology, Other Men's Flowers, into combat, could quote Houseman from memory, and had a gentleness with animals that sat uneasily beside a capacity for violence that his superiors found genuinely frightening. On the 1938 Lions tour, he smashed hotel rooms, freed a convict he had befriended, and went hunting antelope during formal team dinners. He was, in almost every respect, a man whom the peacetime military did not know how to use, and the wartime military could not afford to waste. The conservative institutional figure for his aircraft destruction tally supported by the National Army Museum and the House of Commons Library, is more than 100 aircraft. Ben McIntyre, working from the declassified SAS War Diary, puts it above 200. The documented individual raid totals: 24 at Tamet in December, 27 at Tamet 13 days later, 15 at Berka 22 to 34, at Bagash 14 at El Daba, 22 at Fuka, a share of 40 at Sidi Haneish, exceed 100 even at conservative estimates for each engagement. The highest scoring Western Allied fighter ace, South African Marmaduke Patel, claimed between 40 and 60 aerial victories before his logbooks were destroyed in the retreat from Greece. Johnny Johnson, the top confirmed British ace, scored 34. Even the lower bound of Mayne's tally is roughly triple Johnson's total. The comparison is rhetorically devastating and methodologically imprecise in equal measure. Mayne destroyed stationary aircraft on the ground. Fighter aces engaged opponents who were trying to kill them. Ground attribution in a night raid with multiple team members placing bombs is inherently approximate. Who destroyed which aircraft when 6 men are working the same dispersal line in the dark? The comparison illuminates the extraordinary scale of SAS destruction. It does not equate the two forms of combat. Both required courage. They required different kinds. The broader statistical claim that the SAS destroyed more aircraft than the Desert Air Force shot down in aerial combat requires similar scrutiny. The figure has been growing for 70 years. Virginia Cowles wrote in 1958 that the SAS had destroyed over 250 enemy planes, more than any single squadron of the RAF. Johnny Cooper's 1991 memoir inflated this to over 300. Alan Ho's biography pushed it past 400. The most rigorous independent analysis, Alan Vick's 1995 Rand Corporation study, Snakes in the Eagle's Nest, tallied 367 aircraft destroyed on the ground. But that figure covers all British Special Forces operations in North Africa, including SBS raids on Crete, SOE actions, and LRDG attacks, such as the 32 aircraft raid on Bars, that had no SAS involvement. The SAS's share is the majority, but not the entirety. And the numbers are British claims, not confirmed by cross-referencing Axis loss records, which where available tend to show lower figures. At Agudabia, the SAS claimed 37 aircraft. Axis records indicate 15. The comparison with the Desert Air Force has inflated even more dramatically than the raw numbers. The South African Air Force component of the DIAF alone claimed 342 enemy aircraft destroyed between April 1941 and May 1943. Number 3, Squadron RAAF, claimed 217. The full Desert Air Force, dozens of squadrons from the RAF, SAAF, RAAF, and USAAF, almost certainly destroyed well in excess of 1,000 aircraft over the North African campaign. The claim that SAS ground raids exceeded total DAF aerial victories is a progressive inflation of Cowles' original, more modest comparison with individual squadrons. A narrower and defensible version exists. During specific months in late 1941 and early 1942, when the DAF was at its weakest and operating obsolete fighters against superior German aircraft, the SAS may indeed have destroyed more aircraft than any single squadron shot down in that same window. In June 1942 alone, the SAS destroyed an estimated 8% of all German aircraft in North Africa, plus fuel, spare engines, and airfield infrastructure that no aerial victory could touch. The strategic impact was genuine and disproportionate to the unit's size. It does not need a false comparison to be extraordinary. What Mayne received for his war was 4 Distinguished Service Orders, one of only 7 or 8 British servicemen to hold 4 DSOs from the Second World War. What he did not receive was the Victoria Cross. A recommendation for the VC, citing his actions near Oldenburg on the 9th of April 1945, was signed by Field Marshal Montgomery and endorsed up the chain. On 16th October 1945, the recommendation was anonymously downgraded to a 4th bar to the DSO. No explanation was recorded. The alteration is visible on the original citation form. The word Victoria scratched out, Distinguished Service, written above it in a different hand. Stirling called it a monstrous injustice. King George VI reportedly asked why the cross had so strangely eluded Mayne. Nobody answered. 79 years later, somebody might. In 2025, the UK Defence Minister ordered a formal review of Mayne's case by the Honours and Awards Committee, the first official reconsideration since the anonymous pen stroke of October 1945. Whether the review will result in a posthumous VC, a public acknowledgement of error, or another quiet filing of the paperwork remains to be seen. The SAS Regimental Association and the Government of Northern Ireland have campaigned for decades. The original citation form, with its visible alteration, sits in the archives. The evidence has not changed. The question is whether the institution has. Mayne returned to Newtown Ards after the war, practiced law intermittently, drank heavily, and struggled with what is now recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder. He died in a car accident on December 14th, 1955. He was 40 years old, the man who had destroyed more aircraft than any fighter ace, who had led the SAS through 4 theatres of war, who had been recommended for the highest military honour by a field marshal. He ended in a wrecked car on a country road in County Down, alone. The SAS itself was unceremoniously disbanded on the 8th of October, 1945. The conventional military establishment, which had never fully accepted irregular units during the war, saw no place for them in peace. Montgomery, the same Montgomery who had personally approved SAS operations behind enemy lines, who had signed Mayne's VC recommendation, offered an epitaph that captured the establishment's ambivalence with surgical precision. The boy Stirling is quite mad, quite mad. However, in a war there is often a place for mad people. In peace, apparently, there was not. The disbandment lasted 2 years. In 1947, the SAS was reformed as a territorial army unit, 21 SAS Regiment, Artist Rifles. In 1952, during the Malayan Emergency, it was re-established as a regular formation, 22 SAS Regiment. The unit that the British Army had discarded in October 1945 as an irrelevant wartime novelty became, within a decade, the foundation of Britain's permanent special forces capability. The Iranian embassy siege of 1980, broadcast live to 17 million viewers, turned the SAS into the most recognized military unit on earth. The black balaclavas and MP5 submachine guns became iconic. The Desert Origins, the Lewes bombs, the Vickers K guns, the jeeps driving down runways in the dark, receded into regimental legend, but the Doctrine survived intact. The 4-man patrol operating with strategic autonomy hundreds of miles from the nearest friendly unit, selecting its own targets, carrying its own firepower, withdrawing without support. This was Stirling's pencil-written concept from a hospital bed in Cairo, refined by Lewes at Kabrit, tested at Squatter, proven at Tamet, and industrialized at Sidi Haneish. Every Special Forces unit in the Western world, American Delta Force, Australian SASR, Canadian JTF-2, the French first RPIMA, traces its organizational DNA to L detachment. The selection process that Lewes designed, eliminating candidates who could not meet minimum standards rather than filling vacancies with whoever was available, became universal. The principle that a small number of highly trained men could achieve effects previously requiring battalion strength forces is now so thoroughly absorbed into military thinking that it is difficult to remember how radical it sounded in 1941 when a paralyzed lieutenant proposed it to a general who had never heard of him. The institutional pattern, too, repeated itself with mechanical precision. We have covered it before on this channel. Hugh Dowding built the integrated air defense system that won the Battle of Britain. The sector stations, the plotting rooms, the radar chain, the mathematical allocation of reserves that kept Fighter Command alive through September 1940. 2 months after the battle was won, he was removed from command. No victory parade, no public thanks. Tommy Flowers built Colossus, the world's first programmable electronic computer, at the Post Office Research Station in Dollis Hill. After the war, the machines were dismantled, the drawings burned, and Flowers was forbidden from revealing what he had done. When he applied for a bank loan to build a house, citing his wartime work, the bank manager told him his claims were fantasy. The SAS fits the same pattern. System rejects the outsider. Outsider proves the system wrong. System uses the outsider's work. System discards the outsider. Hitler characteristically understood the SAS's significance more clearly than the British establishment did. His commando order of the 18th of October 1942, Commander Befehl, decreed that all captured commandos, including SAS personnel, were to be summarily executed, even if in uniform, even if attempting to surrender. The order was classified top secret, distributed only to senior commanders, and carried a specific instruction that it was to be destroyed if there was any risk of capture. Several SAS men were murdered under its provisions. It remains perhaps the most inadvertent tribute to operational effectiveness in military history. An enemy so disturbed by a unit's impact that he ordered its members killed on sight rather than risk the intelligence they might withhold or the morale they might sustain in captivity. Jock Lewes had written to his mother in December 1941, weeks before the Bf-110 found his convoy in the open desert. He described what he and Stirling had built. He divided the credit with characteristic precision. Stirling had established the unit externally, Lewes internally, and then he wrote a sentence that proved more prophetic than anything in Stirling's memo to Auchinleck. The unit cannot die as Layforce died. It is alive and will live gloriously, renewing itself by its creative power in the imagination of men. He was killed 9 days later. He was 28. His grave has never been found. The unit he built is still operational, 84 years on, in the same regiment number he never lived to see. The Lewes bomb weighed 1 pound. The Vickers K Gun had been thrown away by the RAF. The Jeep was borrowed from the Americans. The men were rejects, misfits, and officers whom the regular army considered unemployable. The memo was written in pencil. 66 men, one idea, and a military establishment that spent 4 years trying to pretend they did not need it.